Have you ever asked yourself, how much money do I actually need to retire? It's a question that pops into most Americans' minds at some point, and here's the hard truth. Nobody really prepares you for how expensive life gets when you stop working. The bills don't stop. Your rent or mortgage doesn't magically disappear. Groceries definitely don't get any cheaper. And healthcare, that becomes a bigger worry than ever before. So today, let's have an honest conversation about the real cost of retirement in America and why the number is so much bigger than most of us imagine. The first thing people often misunderstand is that retirement isn't just about stopping work. It's about replacing your paycheck. When you clock out for the last time, your expenses don't suddenly shrink. Your lifestyle doesn't automatically change. You don't start eating less, traveling less, or paying less for your car insurance. So the real goal isn't just saving for the future. It's about building a system that pays you every single month, even when you're not working a 9-to-5. So, what's the magic number? Most financial experts will tell you the average American needs somewhere between $1.2 and $1.7 million to retire comfortably. And let me be clear, that number isn't for a life of luxury, yacht parties, and world tours. That's for a basic, normal, middle-class existence. And if you happen to live in a high-cost state like California, New York, or Washington, you could be looking at $2 million, or even more. Retirement now has a price tag, and it's one that most people aren't ready to face. But why is the number so ridiculously high? It's because the cost of simply being alive in America has skyrocketed. Let's start with housing. Whether you rent or own, you're always paying something. If you own, you've got property taxes, insurance, repairs, and maintenance. Retirement doesn't give you a free pass on any of that. And if you're renting, well, prices only seem to go in one direction, up. Imagine trying to retire while your landlord raises the rent every single year, but your income stays exactly the same. That thought alone keeps millions of people up at night. And then we have to talk about the silent monster of retirement, healthcare. After you hit 60, medical expenses almost always start to climb. We're talking prescription drugs, doctor visits, dental work, eye exams, and emergency treatments. Everything becomes more frequent and more expensive. Even with Medicare, the out-of-pocket medical costs can easily hit $6,000 to $10,000 per year for a single person. And if something major happens, like an unexpected hospital stay or a serious illness, that number can explode. A single major medical event can wipe out years of dedicated saving. And that's where the real problem begins. Because most Americans are simply not saving enough. In fact, nearly 40% of Americans have less than $10,000 saved for retirement. A huge number of people have nothing saved at all. And it's not because they don't want to save. It's because the cost of living eats up every dollar. Bills, debt, rent, taking care of kids, car payments, rising interest rates. Life drains your bank account before you even have a chance to put anything aside. For so many, this isn't a discipline problem. It's an affordability problem. So let's break it down with some simple math. If you plan to retire at age 65 and you live until age 85, that's 20 years without a paycheck. 20 years where you'll need food, a roof over your head, healthcare, transportation, and hopefully, a little bit of money left over for things that bring you joy. Without savings, every single year becomes a new financial battle. This is exactly why that $1.2 to $1.7 million number exists. It's not just a financial goal, it's a survival budget, but here's something crucial to remember. Retirement isn't only about money, it's about time. The earlier you start saving, the less pressure you'll face later on. Why? Because money grows when it has time, thanks to the power of compounding. Even small, consistent amounts can make a huge difference. If you invest just $150 a month starting in your 20s, you could retire with hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you start in your 30s, it's still very possible to build a solid nest egg. But if you wait until your 40s or 50s, the climb gets incredibly steep. You have to save so much more each month to catch up. This is why so many Americans reach their 60s and have that terrifying realization. Not ready. And just like that, retirement shifts from being a plan to being a distant dream. People end up working longer than they wanted to. Some have to pick up side jobs just to make ends meet. Others are forced to drastically cut their lifestyle, giving up things they love. And some simply accept the harsh reality that they'll never be able to fully retire. And it's not because they failed. It's because the system often feels like it wasn't built to help them win. So, what's the solution? How do you even begin to tackle this? You start with a number, a real number, not a fantasy, not a wild guess. You need to figure out exactly how much you spend every single month. Right now, track everything. Rent, food, insurance, transportation, debt payments, entertainment, all of it. Then, you imagine replacing that monthly income without having a job? If you spend $4,000 a month today, you'll likely spend something close to that in retirement. That's $48,000 a year. Multiply that by 20 years, and suddenly that $1 million estimate starts to make a lot more sense, doesn't it? But here's the good news. It is not just about saving a giant pile of cash. It's about building streams of income that continue to pay you later in life. Things like investments in retirement accounts, maybe rental properties, index funds that pay dividends. These are the tools that can work for you even when you're not working. Retirement isn't about being rich, it's about having enough. And enough looks different for everyone. Some people want to travel the world. Some just want a quiet, peaceful life. Some want luxury, while others want simplicity. But no matter what, everyone wants peace of mind. The kind of peace where waking up doesn't immediately trigger anxiety about paying bills. The kind of peace that allows you to actually enjoy the life you spent decades working so hard to build. And that's why the single biggest retirement lesson is this: the earlier you begin, the easier everything becomes. Not because you'll magically become wealthy overnight, but because time is the most powerful financial partner you will ever have. Every dollar you invest today is worth so much more than $10 you try to invest later. Every small, consistent step adds up to something massive. So, how much money do you actually need to retire in America? You need enough to protect your future self from the ever-rising cost of living. You need enough to make sure your health doesn't destroy your finances. You need enough to keep a roof over your head, food on your table, and peace in your mind. And whether that final number is $800,000 or $2 million depends entirely on how you live, where you live, and how you plan. But the real message is simple. Start now. Because the only thing more expensive than preparing for retirement is waiting too long to prepare for it. The people who succeed aren't always the richest. They're the ones who start early and stay consistent. In a world where everything is getting more expensive, preparing for your future is no longer optional. It's an act of survival, and the sooner you take control, the more freedom your future self will thank you for. Thanks for watching.